Hi there, my name is Graham Roberts and I'm the course manager here at Hayling Golf Club. This video is a small update of what's been going on over the last winter, what we have currently going into the season, and what to expect going forward for the next year. As you can see behind me, we have the two 12th greenside bunkers. These are two of the three bunkers that we outlined this last winter to be refurbished. The main reason for this is these three bunkers, with fifth included, are all south facing. So with the sun exposure and the play they get, they tend to deteriorate a lot quicker than the rest of the bunkers out on the course. It got to the point now with certain areas of these bunker faces where the turf that we have that builds the revet face of them was actually completely coming away and exposing the soil behind it, creating a potentially unstable approach around it, as well as causing contamination with the indigenous soil and sand behind the bunker in with the bunker sand. So the plan with these was we just do a complete like-for-like rebuild. We consulted with Tom McKenzie on these to see if there was any tweaks to be made, as they're currently in line with the master plan we have for the course, and he was relatively happy with the idea of just going with a like-for-like rebuild with a couple of minor tweaks. The main ones being an adjustment on the bowl on the fifth one, where some of the balls were rolling a bit too far forward to the bunker, and with a slight lean on the stance when you were playing shots out of the bunker, and to actually increase the revet face height ever so slightly, just to reduce the severity of the slope, so that mowers can actually cut close to those edges in a bit more of a sort of safe fashion to avoid any risks going forward. The other slight difference you've got with these bunkers as well is that traditionally we go with a fescue revet turf. This is a turf that we buy in, that's created by turf farms over a year, where it's deliberately made to have a very fibrous, sort of knitted together, thick turf that create a very good sort of almost like a brick that build the wall of these bunkers. Whereas this year we were trialling a creeping bent grass turf. The idea with this being that with the creeping bent being a stoloniferous turf, the different layers of turf will knit together, creating a more durable, hopefully long-lasting bunker face for us. So the plan going forward now is, as you can see, they're both in play and the grass is still on the faces, but when we come into sort of late May, early June, we'll look to spray these faces off to kill the grasses, and then we'll burn them off, as you've seen before with previous bunkers, and that'll give us that really nice sort of clean-cut linked look on the bunkers, and hopefully with the use of this creeping bent revet turf, they may last longer and endure the sort of harsher summers we have here at Hayling going forward. Other tasks you'll see that have been carried out across the course is quite a lot of small turf areas. A lot of these were to address sort of high traffic areas, walking on and off holes, starter fairways, off greens to tees, and we just wanted to do this to improve the aesthetic flow of the course, removing these sort of bare areas that weren't very good to look at, and obviously they weren't great if your ball ended up in those areas. We've also been working on the green tees still. We've only got a few more left to do. This last winter we focused on doing the first and the second green tees, as with those being obviously the first two holes of the course, it seemed nice to have those as a positive look going forward if someone play those green tees for the first time, as opposed to the current or the previous situation we had with the tees just being on rough areas. You'll have seen there's also a couple of turfed areas on the second approach and the 15th approach. With the 15th, this was to address a better flow of traffic going down the left-hand side of the green. Previously there was more of a seam that went through that collar, which caused traffic to either favour going closer to the green or into the semi-rough, which, as you know here, we don't have a lot of soil underneath the turf surface, and therefore these are wearing out quite quickly, particularly on the semi-rough side. The idea with this then was to soften that seam that was created on that approach, creating an area where the traffic can then spread evenly across the whole part, and therefore hopefully create a more consistently improved quality of turf on that side. And with the second, a similar sort of thing, with less need to change the actual flow of the approach and just more to improve the turf quality there, where again it used to sit historically quite wet, which we've now addressed with some deep tining and getting some sand into the channels, as well as getting a more fescue dominant turf down there now, which going forward hopefully we can then establish and keep there for an improved approach to match what we're looking for with our greens complexes here at Hayling, with more fescue dominated species as we continue to sort of improve these surfaces. You've also seen there is a bridge now on the 15th, now with a small unplanned project. As you know, we've had one of the wettest winters on record here. Speaking to some of the members here, obviously I've not been here that long, having only been here 2.5 years. We've seen water here in places across the course that some people have commented on that they haven't seen in almost 40 years now. And one of those issues that we found was that the cutting that we see between 4 and 6 on the 15 was the water levels were getting so high that the water was coming over those pathways and actually stopping the ability to get from the fairway to the green or from tee to fairway on those holes. So the plan with that was the path on 15, it was the breaking point for that, with where the water had gone so high it was starting to come over the top of that path on the right hand side of 15 as you play it. So we cut a channel through that road and then built that small sleeper bridge, with the idea of being like a bath overflow, so that when the water gets to a certain level, it can release that water out to the towards that lagoon that you sort of see on the towards Ferry Road, or on the left of 14 as you play it. So it's worked out quite well so far. I think it shows you how much water we've been having. The fact that that was built towards the start of the year now, sorry, in December actually, and even now that water hasn't stopped flowing since. So it just sort of shows how much water there is in the ground and how high it's gotten over those areas. Another thing that you'll see going forward is that on the 13th we're putting a new out of bounds line on the left hand side of the hole. This is to address the report that was carried out last year with John Ross, following instances that have occurred with stray balls going onto the left of the fence line into the car park. The idea in the short term with that, at least, is with this out of bound line that's brought in from the fence on the left, is that it may sort of encourage players to aim more right, and therefore hopefully reduce any balls going straight to left, although we do know that we can't guarantee that happening all the time. This will also go forward with the long-term aspects of doing work on the slight changes to the hole as well, to improve the right-hand side of the hole, so that, again, it just encourages players to play more to the right, with hopefully less stray balls going over the fence to Ferry Road car park. With regards to the out-of-bounds posts, they'll be going out very soon. That will be included in one of Steve, our GM's, weekly updates before they come into place, so you'll be well aware of it going forward. As you can see, I've stood on the 8th fairway now, a fairway that takes a particular battering with fairway divots. As you can see, it has benefited massively from the fairway mats being in play over the winter. I personally would like to thank the support of the membership for this. I know it's not something that everyone particularly enjoys going through, but as you can undoubtedly see, that we've reaped some really big benefits from this going forward. Obviously, the summer of 23 wasn't quite as brutal as 22, but with the encouragement of Alistair Beggs, our course consultant, as well as obviously the conditions we have, it was sort of recommended that having a second winter where we use mats just to continue to allow the fairways to recover, in particular with the overseeding we carry out in the winter, would be very beneficial. And as you can see, mats aren't in play now. We can all enjoy playing off the fairways again, and they look fantastic for it. The last couple of years we've gone with a ultra-fine rye and fescue mix. We leaned a bit more towards ultra-fine rye immediately after the droughts we've previously had, mainly to gain just a sward composition on the fairways, to get more grass on them where we lost areas of turf, and then that itself could help to encourage fescue going forward, and we start to introduce seed more often. So this last winter we went with a 50-50 split of fescue and ultrafine, and it went really well. So the hope is going forward that we can then look to at the very least keep that same ratio of fescue, but with the hope really of moving to doing a more fescue dominant mix of seed going into fairways, so that we're maintaining that sort of links sort of look and style with the way the course plays. Going forward with this, the next thing will be in the coming weeks to put a granular fertiliser on fairways. The plan with that will be then to obviously the grass that's there, the seed that was put in November, December, help boost the growth of that to encourage it to thicken up a little bit, fill in some of the gaps, and just generally improve the quality and drought tolerance of the fairways. As you know, it's a challenge here at Hayling to retain grass coverage when we have particularly severe summers. As you'll no doubt start to see as we're getting into spring now, temperatures starting to warm up, we're getting the very rare sun that we haven't seen much of recently. We are having weeds popping up. This is something we are addressing as soon as possible. We're putting a selective herbicide out on our fairways, our first cut, and all the shortcut playing turf areas. One of the challenges we have at Hayling, like most links courses, if not all, is that with the wind we're unable to spray until this wind dies down, and we also need it to be dry when we do the application so that it stays on the plant leaf for it to take effect. So between the winter we've had with the rainfall and the wind, which you can probably see is going on just now, we're unable to just now, but as soon as we get that weather window, we'll be putting those applications out to address the weed problems. Now stood up here on the 8th tee, as you can see behind us, this is probably the biggest area where we carried out some of our gorse clearance on the course. The biggest part of this was the fact that, like a lot of areas, with the sheer volume of the gorse was getting too great, and also one of the other aspects we're having to address is the fact that ideally we want to be keeping the gorse in its infantile growing stages. So if you would see gorse out in the courses around 1 metre to 1.5 metres high, that's the ideal height we want the gorse to be growing at. It still remains soft and pliable in the way it grows. We can manage that by trimming it and keeping it nice and dense. This area behind us here was largely woody areas, up to 2 meters tall, if not higher in places. We had brambles ingress in there as well, as long as large patches of which the gorse had got to the point where it had grown so large and then died back. Some of the other benefits to taking this back was the fact that we've now opened the carry up, certainly having taken the second sort of standard gorse a little bit further back away with a number of golf balls in there. Hopefully we'll see more people getting a chance to find those balls that go stray in there. We've strategically left a couple of small areas of gorse, with the idea being that as part of Bob Taylor's ecology plan that he carried out for us, is that we're not looking to totally remove all gorse everywhere across the course, but certainly reduce the numbers of it and allow for small areas to regrow, where we can then from then manage those smaller areas and allow them to thrive where they are while still opening out areas around it. Another benefit as well, where we've taken the gorse out from around the red tee, was part of that was it was so blocked off as well. The gorse has gotten so large it was starting to collapse on itself. Brambles were taking over where the gorse was weaker, which is obviously not a very aesthetically pleasing thing. But also the benefit of the fact now that it was almost like having a canopy around the side, back and side of the tee, where it would reduce the wind flow. So on the dewy mornings, the tee would sit a bit more damp and moist. So really this should hopefully improve the quality of the red tee going forward for the 8th tee. You'll see that we've also been seeding fescue in these areas where the gorse has been stripped out. The next stage here will be that we'll take some of the young marram that you see regenerate in the widow on 13 and then plant those here, so that over time, in the next couple of years, you'll see it start to blend in more so with the rest of the carry and the area immediately in front of here, on the front of the yellow and white tee. You can still see there's a couple more holm oaks to take out. We're getting on with those still going forward as well. The holm oaks, like the lupins, are a job that we are continually working on, because they do grow back at a rate of which I don't think we'll ever fully stop it. But if we keep on top of this and take these out as they come at this size, we can keep on top of it a lot quicker. So we'll look forward to this improving and looking a lot tidier going forward as well, with some small areas of gorse coming back and still creating a little bit of texture and look to the carry without dominating that area as well. As you will have read on Steve's weekly update, last week we carried out some work on the 8th green and on the 7th approach. With the 8th green, this front half of the green is probably one of our weakest areas across the greens on the course. So the plan with this was we went for a really deep solid tine. We first applied the dressing and then went over that with a 17mm diameter solid tine to a depth of 225mm. We then worked the sand in and then gave it several rolls just to true up the surface following all of this work. The plan is that this will then improve the growing environment here, so that we can therefore have more effective overseeding going forward on this section of the green. And with regards to the 7th approach, that approach in itself tends to sit on a heavier soil, and therefore it doesn't drain quite as well as our other approaches. So we have the same process go through there, the idea being that it would improve the drainage as well. With other sort of cultural practices we have on the course, going forward we'll be carrying on with our sort of traditional light dressings on greens and approaches. This will help true up the surfaces, improve the sort of quality as well. We're going to be doing micro grooming. We're fortunate to take delivery of our micro groomers at the start of this year. The plan with those will be that we'll go over the greens sort of fairly frequently throughout the season, and this will remove lateral growth that may build up on the greens, as well as hopefully remove the issue we had last year with the longer stalks of woody almost stems of grass that were appearing around, particularly on the collars and crevices of the greens. We'll also be doing sort of infrequent, very low disruptive tining as well, as and when we require it. That's something we had to do a lot more of this last winter with the amount of rainfall we had. It worked very well. We saw immediate benefits from it as soon as we carried them out. These would normally be done with, say, an 8mm diameter tine or a 10mm, say if it was the approaches. So a very small hole that, once done, the greens are given a roll, you'll barely even know they've been done, but we'll see great benefit from that as well. As you can see at my feet, we actually have one of the 12 test holes we had drilled here by AVZ in January and February. This went on a little longer than we'd hoped. They learned, as I have and many people have worked here in the past, just how challenging the ground conditions here are at Hayling Golf Club. And so they've been successful in getting the 12 holes in for us now. Right now I'm here on the right hand side of 17 approach, and the plan for this going forward now is the next 12 months we will be then carrying out weekly measurements of these holes. The idea being we will measure the depth of which the water is sitting in these holes. All 12 of them range from 7.5 to 10.5 metre depth. We will then measure that along with installing a measuring board in the lake. The idea being that we're going to look over these next 12 months to see if the levels between the lake and these dip wells, or test holes rather, if there's a correlation between them. The idea being that we want to see that there isn't a direct correlation between the water rates and water levels in these holes in the lake. Best case scenario, we'll see the fact that the water that we see in these test holes doesn't directly feed the lake, and therefore we could be seen to extract these in the future. So following 12 months of looking at all the seasons and how these water levels change in relation with the lake, the next step will then be looking at the volumes within these holes and seeing how much water we can extract from each hole and how long it takes for each of them to be replenished to that same level, to then get an accurate calculation of how much water is viably possible from each of these holes. And then from then, hopefully, we can look at finding added resources to take water that we can then use to run our irrigation system, which, as you know, is something that is imperative here for Hayling Golf Club, as our biggest resource and issue is water sourcing here on the course. That pretty much concludes the video of the week of our updates across the course. Going forward, we're hoping to do a few more of these just to keep you up to date with what's going on. And if you see any of the team or myself at the course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask and come say hi. And I hope you enjoy the season going forward.